Je pense sans cesse à toi.
Well, hello there, and welcome to The Four Top. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot-button topics in food and beverage. I'm your host, Catherine Cole. On today's show, we will nibble on 3 courses. First, the scoop on secret menu items. Second, meal prep kits meet Martha. And finally, dining in the Instagram era. Our esteemed panelists here in the studios of Oregon Public Broadcasting are Laura Russell, cookbook author, food writer, and recipe developer. Welcome, Laura.
Hello, Catherine.
And Erin DeJesus, reports editor at eater.com. Hey, Erin.
Hey, Catherine.
And Ivy Manning, author of 5 cookbooks and contributor to magazines such as Cooking Light and Fine Cooking. Hi, Ivy.
Hello.
Okay, let's start with an amuse-bouche. The scoop on secret menu items. For America's top chain restaurants, it's not enough to merely have a menu anymore. Whether you're In-N-Out Burger or Starbucks, you've got to offer secret dishes and items that don't appear on the menu board. And those secret dishes have got to have catchy names that lend themselves to trending on social media. Erin DeJesus, can you explain to us what a secret menu item is and why we should care about this inscrutable trend?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, what is interesting is that it's actually not a new trend. So to take one example in what I think is probably the less secret of all the secret menu items, it is In-N-Out, the West Coast burger chain's dish that's known as the animal style hamburger. So In-N-Out very famously has a very simple menu. They serve burgers, fries, sodas, shakes. What the animal style does to your hamburger is essentially throw a lot of stuff on top of it. Now you have onions involved, there's pickles, there's mustard. It's this like soppy, gloopy, delicious mess that you get on top of your burger when you request it animal style. What's interesting is that this is actually an old phenomenon that predates social media. So according to legend, animal style actually surfaced in the 1960s in Southern California when all the surfer dudes would come in from a day on the water, stroll up to In-N-Out and decide that they wanted something a little bit more special to fill their stomachs and to, help add all of those calories that they just burned by surfing all afternoon. And so this is not a new thing. It's not necessarily something that has been designed with social media in mind, for example. But what is interesting is that a lot of social psychologists can sort of tie some psychology into why people want access to what is this quote-unquote secret thing that is actually well-known. And what a lot of people say is that knowledge of a secret menu, it sort of ties you to this community that you may not have had otherwise. So in the 60s, it was the surfer guys in SoCal. Now you're talking about communities of Starbucks lovers who, for example, request these, pink drinks and these weird concoctions where you're adding syrups and whipped creams and sprinkles and all sorts of things to your shake or to your smoothie or to whatever they call it at Starbucks, which sort of ties you to that community of I am a Starbucks lover. This is my brand. This is part of my everyday life.
And do these people also kind of want to be in the early adopter crowd? They kind of want to be ahead of the trend, right?
Absolutely. So that is definitely part of the draw is like you're part of that early adopter community. But also, to sort of put a positive spin on it, it's also the idea that you are now in this unique position to welcome other people into the community. So Ivy, if I were to take you into In-N-Out and introduce you to animal style, I now bring you into this fold that I'm a part of, and that maybe makes me feel better about myself. It makes me feel like that we have this shared experience that we may not have had otherwise.
Yeah, we shared an animal burger together.
Animal style. I mean, that just sounds a little raunchy to me, but
well, I had read that's the people that ran the In-N-Out burgers used to call the surfers animals because they had scruffy long hair and they were kind of, dudes. So thus the name. I find it interesting that in most cases, these restaurants aren't, at least the chain ones I was looking at on the Hacked Menus website, which lists all of the chains and all of their different secret menu items. Mostly it's just stuff that they already have around, like Erin was saying. So you're pretty much putting more gloop in an already gloopy food to make it even gloopier. And then you feel like connected. You have more engagement with the restaurant, I guess.
Or on the opposite side of that, I also noticed a lot of the secret menu items were taking something away in kind of an obvious manner, such as the bun. A lot of maybe the Mexican chains are doing, a burrito bowl. Or, for instance, back to In-N-Out Burger, they do the protein style, the lettuce wrap. So I think a lot of them also stem maybe from accommodating dietary restrictions. But they don't seem to need a special category. It's kind of an obvious substitution in my mind.
But I don't know. Part of me wonders if this whole secret menu thing is just a big marketing scam. I mean, come on, Erin. This is all about guerrilla marketing, right? I stumbled on this blog called StarbucksSecretMenu.net. And there were so many exclamation points and there was so much excitement about these kind of nasty looking drinks of various colors that I thought, okay, some Starbucks PR flack is pretending to be a fan of Starbucks and is pretending to be blogging about these secret menu items. But come on,
yes,
really.
I'm sure that's part of it. But I think a lot of these chains have to walk that dreaded A-word, the authenticity line, where if you're a chain who intentionally puts out what you call a secret menu and try to push it to certain influencers, there's something about people want sort of that act of discovery that they achieve on their own, where it doesn't quite translate. Eater did a piece about this not too long ago, and one of the chains that tried to do this and failed was Panera. In that they decided, we're going to put together these, dish combinations and try to sell it to people as if they're in this in crowd, but we're also actively selling it to everyone. So there's that strange sort of middle ground where people want to feel like they're part of an insider crowd, a part of a community, but they do not want that fed to them.
Right. Well, once it's on Twitter, it's kind of not a secret menu item anymore. And then I've seen actual tweets where it's like, our new secret menu item. I'm like, define secret.
If you look up the Twitter hashtag secret menu, there are a lot of interesting things that pop up, however.
There are. I was just curious about some of the Starbucks ones because there's so many. And I was reading what was in a very popular one. It's the Nutter Butter Frappuccino. So they just take a grande hazelnut frappuccino, which already rings in at 390 calories, and I did a little math, and I figured out with the extra 4 pumps of coffee syrup and a whole banana that they're adding, for a 12-ounce drink, you're getting 575 calories.
Ew.
And it's 45% of the recommended daily allowance of saturated fat in 1 cup of coffee-like drink. So, I mean, like I was saying, you're adding extra gloop. But you do have to consider that in your entire day's allowance of calories.
No, that's an interesting point, Ivy, because don't Starbucks have the calorie counts posted on their menu board?
They do.
So if it's a secret menu item, it's not posted, right?
Oh, there's no calories in it if it's a secret menu
I'm sure
item.
the chains love that, actually. They're no longer responsible for your consumption of 600 morning calories.
Because the dish doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fascinating. Laura, what do you think?
I thought one chain, Shake Shack, has a secret menu, and I thought they did one thing very, very well and one thing not so well. So on their secret menu, one of the items is extra sauce. I don't think that really needs to be a menu item. But they also have something I thought was sort of clever. You can order an ice cream sandwich off of Shake Shack's secret menu. And what that means is you get their frozen custard, and they also give you griddled hamburger buns, and you create an ice cream sandwich with your frozen custard and the buns. Not that I want to eat that in particular, but at least that's sort of a clever secret menu item. It's not just kind of taking something else that's there and adding something else to it.
But Laura, okay, you're a recipe developer. Isn't there something inherently wrong about what they're doing here? I mean, I think a lot of these secret menu items, like you said, it's like a hamburger that has tater tots in it, or, taking a hamburger bun and putting ice cream in it. I mean, this just seems wrong. It seems like they're just mismatching ingredients just for the heck of it to surprise people.
Well, from a recipe development standpoint, I think a lot of these chains might introduce secret menu items as a way to test the market and to see if this is an item that people actually really, really go for, that they might add to their menu permanently.
I know that's happened in finer dining restaurants. There's a lot of great bistros. There's one in particular here in Portland, St. Jack, and they have sort of a secret burger on the menu. It's not on the menu, but people knew to ask. Word got around, and that was a more personal relationship you're having because it's just a smaller restaurant. So, I mean, they did a good job of sort of keeping it under wraps. It did feel sort of more authentic, and it's a darn good burger. So, and it better be, right? If it's secret, it better be.
The idea of a secret menu item becoming more permanent, whether it's tested and becomes permanent or just becomes tested and people know to ask for it. Chipotle had a version of this where they have something called the quesarito. It is a burrito, but instead of a tortilla, it's wrapped in a quesadilla. And this is not something that they're going to advertise on the menu because apparently it's very time-consuming to make. There are certain locations that won't make it during a lunch rush, for example, when there's a line out the door. But they have actually enough people ordering this where they standardize the cost of it across all Chipotle locations. So now they've decided it's whatever your burrito will cost plus $3.50, which is sort of like a tacit acceptance that this is now something that we are going to offer, as opposed to for most secret menu items, they might just sort of charge you whatever extras they decide to charge you at the counter, and then that will be the price you pay. So the fact that they said, all right, we're going to standardize the price of this menu item makes it a kind of a real menu item. But they just have the option of saying to you at a particular point in time, we're not going to make that for you right now.
And once again, that ties us back into Ivy's point of it sounds like Chipotle is just trying to cram as many calories as possible into their already massive burrito. I mean, how many of these secret menu items are just incredibly caloric and fattening?
A lot, I'd hazard to guess.
Sounds like most of them. I like the idea of getting it out of the fast food realm and having secret menus that you actually have to earn as a diner. And by that, I mean maybe you go to a Chinese restaurant in your neighborhood and instead of ordering sweet and sour chicken, you show the establishment that you have maybe more sophisticated taste buds, and they actually offer you some of the secret, more traditional items that might not be on the menu, maybe braised beef tendon or a pickle and fish stew, and you actually have to work for it.
That's the old school secret menu item.
Right.
Well, on that note, the old school way to eat dinner is to actually cook it yourself. And that brings us to our next topic, which is meal prep kits. Meet Martha. This will be our meaty main course today. We have all heard about prep-at-home meal kit services such as Blue Apron. We thought it would be fun for our two professional cooks on our panel today to try out Martha Stewart's new service, and we will compare it with a couple of other meal kit services. Laura Russell, can you start us off by describing how these services work, and then we want to hear your expert opinion on Martha's new service called Martha and Marley Spoon.
Sure. I've been hearing quite a bit about these meal delivery services or meal kits, and I've never tried them before, mostly because I already cook professionally, so I don't, it's not something that would enter my radar. And I used to think these were a service for people who don't like to cook. But that's not true. I was wrong about that. It's for people who don't like to shop or to plan. I think that's really the more of a target for these type of services. Essentially, these are mostly subscription services. You go online to the website and you sign up either for 2 or 4 people. You suggest you choose how many meals you might like for the next week. You go to a menu and you choose your items for the next week. And the subscription goes on until you cancel it, essentially. I now think these are the paint by numbers of cooking. Basically, the box shows up at your door with everything you need. You follow the instructions, and hopefully you get something delicious for dinner. I personally cooked from a meal kit called Martha and Marley Spoon. This is a meal service based on some 18,000 recipe database of Martha Stewart recipes. And I mostly had good results. Basically, the box showed up. The ingredients for each individual recipe, they were in brown paper bags. That packaging wasn't too wasteful. The produce was right in the bag. And then the perishable ingredients were nestled in between 4 large ice packs. So overall, I mean, there was still a lot of packaging, but I thought it wasn't too bad. In terms of the food, we got 3 extra large recipe cards with the photos of the dishes on them. There's a hotline phone number on the back, so if you have trouble cooking any of the recipes, you can call this hotline. Most of them were between about 30 and 40 minutes to cook. And one recipe in particular, glazed chicken with polenta and sautéed kale, I had my husband cook it. He's not a cook. He has a couple of special things he makes, but he got through this recipe. It tasted good. It looked good. He did it. He followed the instructions. Other than the fact it needed 3 pans, which I thought was a little excessive, that turned out great. And before I go on about my other recipes, I think, Ivy, you also cooked from the same Martha and Marley spoon.
I did.
So I'd be interested to hear about your recipes, before we need to say anything about my specific recipes.
Thanks, Laura.
Sure.
I have a little bit of a different problem because I'm in a mixed diet family.
Yes.
So my husband is not he's a fishitarian. A pescatarian, he'll only eat fish. That's the only meat protein he'll eat. And he's also picky. So I tried another meal box service, and we had to sign up for vegetarian. There was no other way around that because of the meat. And they didn't give you any choices. You just got what you got. You were going to get those three meals. And I could tell within the projected 3-week meal thing that there were about half of them he either wouldn't eat or I didn't like, or it was like, okay, that's a salad. Vegetarians eat more than a salad for a meal. So I had to abandon that one completely because they just don't let you customize. And I did find that Marley Spoon customized a lot better. You could tell them I eat chicken and fish, for instance. You could check those boxes, and then they'll only show you those meals that comply, and then you get to pick amongst quite a few, which I thought that part of it was nice. And it's really nicely photographed. It looks like you're looking at a Martha Stewart magazine. Like you kind of overhead, super bright shots. It's really nicely done. I was just absolutely taken aback by how wasteful it was. Like there was so much packaging. And then these it's all packed in these ice packs, that like Nordic gel ice stuff. I didn't know what to do with those. There was a huge box and it was only 3 meals in it. And some of my stuff looked like it had been rolled over by a forklift. So like already I was like I love to shop. So I'm sort of the wrong audience. I know that, but I wasn't real impressed with the quality of the ingredients and the fact that like there'd be 1 tablespoon of chipotle chilies in a plastic container or 2 green onions in a zip top bag. I was like, this is all going into a landfill when, I could just walk to the store. That was the biggest problem I had with it.
I thought my packaging of the individual ingredients wasn't so bad. I completely agree with you. I had then a giant box and these giant ice packs. And if you got this delivery once a week or twice a week, I'm not sure where all that would go.
The other I was expecting it to be a little bit more like mix and go. I was surprised. I mean, you actually had to chop the cabbage for the slaw, and you had to cut up the catfish and bread it and fry it. And like that's stuff that's a lot of work. And I didn't think that the recipes were terribly didactic. So I didn't feel like if you really don't know how to cook, you would be learning that much from these recipes in particular. I thought there were some opportunities missed to go, here's how to peel garlic. But it doesn't. It just says peel and chop. Well, if you don't know how to do that, there's that. So, I don't need it. It's not tempting to me, but I think it's great for people that are really busy and want to feed themselves. I mean, that's a great thing.
All right. Well, we got to hear, Erin, I know you do Blue Apron and I do Sunbasket. So let's compare and contrast here. Tell me about Blue Apron.
Yes. Well, as Laura, as you just said, this is a box subscription for someone who doesn't want to plan. That is me 100%. I could confidently say I'm the least experienced cook here, although I enjoy the actual process of doing it, of the chopping, the sauteing, the cooking. For me, where it comes in handy is at the end of a work day where I'm exhausted and I only have 3 or 4 recipes really in my personal repertoire. I can literally open the fridge and say, oh, I have this. It's here. I don't have to think about what to make for dinner. Dinner is here. I just need the half an hour to throw it together. So for that, I loved Blue Apron. It is something that we've had on and off for a few months, and we really let the subscription lapse because of the packaging factor. I totally agree. It just, we would get a box maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. And even after, 2 months of that, we had ice packs just taking up room in the freezer because I feel horribly guilty just throwing them out. We had all these, we tried to save all the little 2-ounce liquid containers and all the little Ziploc bags to reuse them. And all of a sudden, I open a drawer and it's littered in plastic bags that I just can't bring myself to throw away. So for me, yeah, I completely agree with you, Ivy, that the packaging is such a turnoff that it almost at this point negates the what do I make for dinner sort of problem that it did solve.
Laura, did you have any trouble? I know you're gluten-free. Was it pretty easy to find options that were gluten-free, and did you let them know?
There were gluten-free options, and you could see them ahead of time on the menu. But I did check into several other of these meal kit services, and it made it way too difficult to differentiate what was gluten-free or vegan or anything else at first glance. And I think all of these services need to make it very clear because they're going to have, well, in your case too, if you were looking for something vegetarian or pescatarian and it's not clearly labeled, you're going to pass right over it and go to a different service.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I think I'm going to sound like an ad here, but Sunbasket, I'm really enjoying. The packaging is mostly compostable. So you can rip open, I believe it's the ice packs. You rip them open and then you compost the gel that's inside. And then I just save all my plastic bags and recycle them at my local gourmet grocery that has, those plastic bag recycling receptacles. But all of the ingredients that Sunbasket sends, I believe, are organic and if not vegetarian, pescatarian. I mean, I'm pretty happy with this service. They don't, like you were saying, Ivy, about garlic. The garlic already comes peeled, so they don't even make you do that. But I have learned some tricks, like there's a lot of zesting of lemon, which I never did before I got this service. Things like slicing a lemon and throwing it on the grill as long as you're grilling, I would never think to do, and you can just do that to punch up flavor. As you know, as a professional cook, I had no idea. Yeah, so I'm learning some things. I'm sort of, I don't know. But my one complaint is, as with any sort of CSA, once you're addicted to one of these things and you're getting them every week, you can't keep up.
Right. Because things are crazy and you've got soccer and the kids and everything. You just have the time to actually cook at all, right?
And you go out to dinner and, yeah. But I'm interested in the kind of the celebrity chef aspect of this because I want to know what glamorous aspect did Martha Stewart bring to your Marley Spoon experience, ladies?
Well, for me, I've never tried any other service, but for Martha and Marley Spoon, and then also for Chef, which is the New York Times meal service kit, my expectation is that these are tried and true, very well-tested recipes. The New York Times cooking site, you're getting Melissa Clark recipes and you're getting the other columnist recipes. And I feel like, in theory, these have been through the ringer and they've already been tested. So I think that's a bonus, especially if these kits are going to someone who may not already cook. How about you, Ivy?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, I guess, Laura, that I kind of liked the look is the same. The food photography on their website, on Marley Spoon's website, is very Martha Stewart-esque, and I'm a fan. So
right. It feels very familiar.
It feels familiar, and it is. It's her kind of healthy sort of leaning, superfoods are in there. Although I was kind of surprised how high the calories in the 3 meals I picked. There was 890 calories in one of them per serving, which kind of freaked me out. But, you do kind of expect there to be sort of a style. Like Jamie Oliver is working with HelloFresh, and he has a style to his kind of food, So you can, if you relate to a chef in that way, you kind of like their palate, then I could see buying a service based on them, that they're behind it.
And doesn't that make so much more sense than buying like an Ina Garten frozen meal, for example, or those other sorts of chef brand partnerships where you're not actually encouraging people to cook, which have always struck me as odd.
Yeah, it's great. You are cooking.
Yeah, I appreciate that these do get people cooking, although I suspect, at least for Ivy and myself, that as people who grocery shop for sport, we're probably going to continue just cooking our own meals.
Well, I really do. I just started an online column, and my editor asked me to include, it's like how to throw a dinner party in 5 easy steps. And she asked me to include a shopping list. And I said, nobody needs a shopping list. This is so simple. And she's like, no, put up a shopping list. And I did. And a lot of the comments are like, thanks for putting a shopping list in there. It makes it so much easier for me. Because I think people don't know how to organize their thoughts, and they've got a kid tugging at them, and the grocery store is chaotic at 5 p.m. And I can see that, they just need a little nudge in the right direction on what to buy. So it makes sense.
Well, on that note, can we talk value? Erin, do you find that Blue Apron, which is your service, is affordable? Do you feel like you're getting a good value out of it?
Not necessarily, which again is part of the reason why we've let it lapse a bit. So the meals run about $10 per person. So every kit has 3 meals for 2 at $60 per delivery, which includes all the shipping, delivery fees, the fancy dry ice situation. Which, breaking it down, obviously, if I'm going to a grocery store, those meals are not going to cost me $10 per person to make. Where I do see a bit of savings on occasion are things like spice mixes and other pantry items. Often Blue Apron will send more than I need, and I'll end up having some fun extra thing in the pantry that I'm normally not used to buying. And frankly, if I did buy, I would buy a 2-ounce container of it, and then it would spoil after X number of months. So there are little elements of value there, but it's not inexpensive. We'll say that.
Well, I have a tip for all of our listeners, which is if you have 2 fairly picky kids like I do, just pay for the 2-person box and add a few more potatoes and a few more carrots. And you basically are getting a meal for 4 people, because they always send you a little too much food. And you can always just find something in your fridge to just throw in there. A few more tomatoes.
Or you could buy a cookbook or subscribe to a great food magazine and go, that looks good, and then write a list on Sunday evening like I do of what we're having for the week. I don't always stick to it, but I get excited about, these things are coming up this week. And then I write a shopping list, and I write it by department. Okay, all the produce I need. Okay, all of the stuff in the grocery department I need, and then I get her done.
Oh, you're so analog, Ivy. Come on.
I write it down, too.
I did too.
All right, well, let's take a little break and let everyone know what we've been wetting our whistles with. I brought in some yummy botanical cocktail and soda syrup that's made right here in Portland. It's called Raft, and this is hibiscus lavender syrup. Can you all taste it? We blended it with some sparkling water. I don't know if you're able to taste it. Did I stir it well enough, everyone?
Perfect. Yes. It's very refreshing. It's a pink drink, too.
It is a pink drink.
And have you all noticed hibiscus showing up on cocktail lists lately? I feel like I've been seeing it more and more.
Yeah, I've actually seen it on menus as well. I saw a hibiscus glazed game hen that looked really good. So I think it's kind of one of those new, with the interest in Central American and Latino foods, I think it's sort of perhaps.
And I always used to
love
have
a moment.
Agua de Jamaica.
Is that how you say that? Oh.
It's like the iced tea made out of hibiscus blossoms. Have you all tried that?
Yeah.
Yes, they have a great one at Porque No here in Portland. Very tart.
Yeah, except it's not quite as tart as like a cranberry tea, do you think?
No.
This has been really yummy, and you can, what I love about all these botanical syrups that are coming out lately is you can put them into a cocktail, or you can just put them into soda water and just kind of liven up whatever you're drinking. So, yeah, that's what we've been sipping as we've been talking to you. If only I could take a picture of it and Instagram it, because our next topic, our third course today, is dining in the Instagram era. Social media has changed the way we dine out in restaurants, and Instagram, home of food porn, is arguably the most powerful example of this. Has Instagram changed the way chefs present their menus and create their dishes? And has this been good for food or bad for food? Ivy Manning, how about you get us rolling on this topic? What's your take on Insta menus and foodograms?
Well, just doing a little research for this, I was shocked to find out that as far as hashtags, so that's you take a photo and you hashtag it, and then other people can see your photo in a grouping with that same hashtag. just in case there's anyone analog that doesn't know what a hashtag is. I looked up food porn, which actually is kind of an icky term. I'm not a fan of it personally, but 99 million hashtags as of today.
Whoa.
So this is something, and it's got a real driving force in commerce. There are restaurants that do invent crazy dishes. For instance, Chomp in LA has something called a unicorn melt. It's a grilled cheese, a 4-cheese sandwich, and they've dyed some of the cheeses so that when you pull it apart, as a lot of Instagrammers do, so you get the gooey cheese coming out of the toasted bread, it's a rainbow. So this isn't something that just sort of came to the chef's mind as something to feed people. This was, we want to talk about our restaurant on Instagram and get millennials in here, and this is going to create a sensation, and it does. This restaurant in particular, Chomp, is also the home of the red velvet waffle with sriracha fried chicken and juice and a light bulb. So these are people that are thinking, image first.
Not flavor.
Not necessarily. But in the same breath, there are plenty of really great restaurants out there that, do take pictures of their beautiful high-end food, and they're thinking about flavor first, probably. And, they're Instagramming it and they're sharing it with their followers, and that's a way for followers to engage about food, which, can be a good thing. And it can really put butts in seats in restaurants if you know how to work it.
Absolutely. Erin, I bet you have some insight on this topic.
Oh my gosh, I do. So I actually have a theory as to why. So I'm one of those people who definitely uses Instagram as a resource. I'm a restaurant obsessive. Before I go to a restaurant, I tend to look at the menu. I will now incorporate it into this sort of process is going to Instagram to look at what certain dishes look like. And I think the reason why I and so many other people do this is because menus, maybe about 10 years ago or so, I know David Chang in New York City from Momofuku likes to lay claim to this. It probably existed pre him, but it's popularized the menu that is literally just a list of ingredients. So you look at a menu, and I actually wrote down a real Momofuku dish. On the menu, this dish is called pork shoulder, blue cheese, persimmon, and shishito pepper. And that's all you get. And you have no idea how any of these ingredients are prepared, how they interact with each other on a plate. So for me, I see that and I think I have no idea what this dish could be like. I'm going to go to Instagram, which will tell me a different story and maybe show me some of these relationships. So I can say like, oh, that shoulder is braised, and then that persimmon is a puree sauce thing, and the blue cheese is a weird garnish. And it helps me sort of inform my expectations. So when I get to the restaurant, I have a better understanding of what I'm ordering. And I think because of this vague menu that is now the thing that everybody is doing, Instagram has become so important because people need to visualize, like, what does pork shoulder with blue cheese mean? That could mean literally anything.
That is so ironic because David Chang kind of became famous 10 or 12 or maybe 8 to 10 years ago when he banned cameras in one of his restaurants. And now it's like you can't even eat at his restaurant without access to a device.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
Times
need
have changed.
to decode it. Yeah.
What do you think, Laura?
I love Erin's analysis. That's actually a pet peeve of mine is menus that list their ingredients like that, because you know what's in it, but it could mean anything. And it could mean something so different, whether you're getting something grilled or fried or raw or who knows what. So I also have turned to Instagram in many instances for that very reason. And I like this idea that you can look up a restaurant's menu by the hashtag. Unfortunately, on the flip side, I don't want to be in a restaurant where everyone is on their phones, where you look around the restaurant and everyone is heavily staging. I feel like if you can take a quick, discreet photo that gets the point across, that's great. But once it becomes too disruptive, then I think that also ruins your dining experience a little bit. So I really have mixed feelings on the whole situation.
One trend I do like about Instagram and restaurants is some restaurants are actually making their menus better so that people won't take pictures of the food, but take a picture of the menu. So I was reading about one place that does, I believe it's a bar in San Francisco that does like a Pantone color wheel, and they have their menu items each corresponding with a different Pantone color, kind of like one of those paint chip things you get at the paint store. something fun like that where they kind of draw your eye to a beautiful menu. And hey, I think that's a great idea. Take a picture of the menu. Also, I find this idea pleasing because I get kind of grossed out by food photos. Am I the only person who has this problem?
I am really done with the hashtag fork and the huge Baconator sandwiches cut in half and shown to you. It's getting a little gratuitous. I agree.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's like a beautiful, delicate artwork kind of food, but just a big sloppy pile of something, I'm done with that.
And it seems that actually they get more clicks. They get more likes. The big comfort food, gratuitous bacon, burger, oozy thing.
That is true.
Gets more likes.
I will admit, though, that on many occasions, I will choose a restaurant based on a particularly appealing photo that I've seen on Instagram. You know, I might there's an account, Jen Stevenson, who's a food writer. She has an account called Jen Likes to Eat. And I can't tell you how many times I'll see what she had for lunch. And the next thing I know, I'm craving that particular dish. And the next day I'm at the restaurant. It happens a lot.
In a really cutthroat business, I mean, the restaurant industry is a tough business, and not all these restaurants can afford to have a PR firm working for them. If they have one influencer take a good picture and it helps, catapult them to some sort of success, that's awesome. I mean, they just did their own PR. It gets a little icky, though, I think, there are plenty of restaurants and PR firms that have figured this out and are now sponsoring meals and trips for these there's like 19-year-old kids that have, 45,000 followers, and they're being jetted off to God knows where to have a meal, and say that they love this kind of vodka or what have you. If it's an organic experience, I think it's a cool thing. It's when it gets a little sticky and icky when you get into these people that are being sort of bought.
Yeah, and Instagram, that just shows that Instagram is creating this whole new need for media literacy that goes way beyond just what traditional published media looks like. I feel like the average Instagram user will see like a sponsored content or even just, like a blogger press trip sort of situation and really not know or care about the difference. But I agree with you that that's a problem.
So how do you become more media literate, Erin?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Or, digitally
media literate.
Yeah. Is there like a course? Can I take that?
I've actually very seriously thought about teaching said course. I have such an issue with the whole SpawnCon is the hashtag or hashtag ad on people's Instagrams where the disclosure is literally just a hashtag that nobody searches.
Wait, what is a SpawnCon?
SpawnCon, sponsored content. So, there are people who do this and do this well, and it's their full-time job and their main source of income, and I do not begrudge that at all. It is when you're talking about, journalists or editors who are on staff at publications where it gets a little bit sticky that you are taking money from a brand to post a photo on your personal, not your work, but your personal Instagram or social media accounts. And usually people will just hashtag it SpawnCon for sponsored content. You'll hashtag it ad. But often if it's one of 25 hashtags that are on your photo, people aren't going to see that. And it's designed so people likely are not going to see that.
This is so interesting because it's bringing us back to our first topic, the secret menu items, because the whole reason these things are being pushed nowadays is that they want people to take pictures of them and post them on Instagram. One trend I've noticed that kind of ties our two topics together is the rise of the milkshake and the slushie. Have you all noticed that people are just taking tons of photos of milkshakes and slushies lately? And a lot of them are secret menu items from Starbucks. And yeah, I've noticed that Instagram has, on my feed, it's usually there's something called a frosé, which is frozen rosé wine, or the red wine milkshake, things like that.
Yeah, well, that kind of brings out, that points to the fact that, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that's maybe why some of us are a little tiny addicted to the Instagrams. I follow a lot of people in Japan, and I'm just looking at what they're eating. I can't read a single word of although now they have translation, I just want to, culturally, I'm interested in what they're eating. Or there's a great gal in Indonesia, and I just follow what she is cooking because I'm just interested in learning more about that food. Or there's little sub-communities, outside of the restaurant world, but in the food world, there's a whole hashtag wild yeast. And these are all these passionate sourdough bakers, and they're total nerds. And they're talking in 30% hydration level, but they're all sharing with each other and comparing notes and learning things. And also chefs are watching other chefs and going, oh, cool, Aunt Sal's doing a cronut with, cocoa nibs. Maybe I'll do a dessert with cocoa nibs. They're kind of learning from each other and building on it. And I think that part of it's really great.
Oh, I love that. I love those bakers with their yeast.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are handsome Gus's, too. So that's part of the fun. You just imagine that, like whole grain sourdough bread.
So I co-manage we have a local Eater PDX Instagram account, which everybody should go like and follow and do what have you. But it's a fairly new account. We just launched it a few weeks ago. But there's already one restaurant that has emerged as the most Instagrammed site in Portland. Can anyone guess what that would be?
Oh, boy.
Well, based on my feed, I'd say, well, you say already, I think of Tusk because it's brand new and I've seen many, many, many very appealing photos.
I'm going to guess Tasty and Alder or Tasty and Sons because people always seem to Instagram brunch for some reason.
Those are two solid guesses. Do you have a third?
I was thinking maybe Hot Yai. It's a Thai man, Earl, that's doing incredible real Southern Thai food.
So those are all excellent guesses. And Tusk, I think, among the food writing community is absolutely the top one right now. But generally speaking, among people who just use like the hashtag Portland Eats or hashtag PDX, it's Pine State Biscuits, which is hands down the most Instagrammed. And it's, as you were saying earlier, it's that messy, runny yolk, gravy, biscuity, comforty thing. And that was very surprising to me as someone who is a casual Instagram user to now follow this hashtag and see, that is exactly what people...
I like to, when I'm on the elliptical, I like to just look at those pictures.
Working it out.
Irony. Oh, and just to inform our listeners who are not in Portland, Pine State Biscuits is a biscuit and gravy joint, basically, right, Erin?
Yes, with several locations. And yeah, they're very popular amongst tourists, which I think is kind of juicing the numbers right now. But they've been on every Food Network, Travel Channel, food program out there. So I think that's why.
Well, I jest, but there's actually been a study by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, and they took a look at what looking at food porn can do to you, and they found that it can invoke an appetite even if you're not hungry. So, because, we're hunter-gatherers, and when we saw a red berry, we go for it, right? So we're sort of wired to look at food, delicious food, and go, I want that, So it's an interesting thought. I am on the elliptical looking at biscuits and gravy, but... am I going to go eat that?
Oh, one other Portland joint I feel like we have to mention, Voodoo Donuts. Now, of course, expanding to other cities, but who has not seen a Voodoo Donut Instagram once a day?
That's probably number 2, is Voodoo Donut, yeah.
Right, and they're like for anybody that hasn't heard of them, they have these ubiquitous pink boxes, and it's a tourist in town when they have one because they've waited in a very long line to get these crazy donuts that have cereal. They were the first people to really sprinkle cereal on donuts, and they even have a little voodoo doll one that you can stick a pretzel stick in, and against your enemy, and then it's custard-filled deliciousness. But they're always coming up with new ones, and they're all very colorful and very, I don't know, how would you describe it, Laura?
As photographable. They're sometimes in interesting shapes, too. Like you said, the voodoo doll. And I actually came across more pictures of voodoo donuts. Out of the blue, we were walking around in Taipei last year, and I noticed Voodoo Donuts, and I said, oh, how funny. I guess they're copying the Portland Voodoo Donuts. But no, Voodoo Donuts actually has a branch in Taipei.
No. Do they have lines?
They didn't have a line at all. But it was a weekday. It was, I can't speak to what they're like on the weekends, but when we were there was not a line.
Well, speaking of sweet things, I think it's time to kind of wrap up this show and talk about what we want to share for dessert. I'll go first. I want to tell everyone about these cute comic books my kids have been reading. They are called Rutabaga the Adventure Chef. And I believe there are only 2 books so far, and I have both of them here. They're about this cute little adventure chef. He has this giant backpack that's like a collapsible kitchen, and he goes on these adventures, and he has his little sidekick is a pot that walks on its little feet and follows him around. And he goes and battles these little evil creatures, these green creatures. his superpower is that he cooks. And these cute little books have these great little recipes. I mean, sometimes they're kind of crazy. It's, cooking up exotic insects. But you can actually make some of these recipes, and they're like green fizzy drinks that kids would love to make at home. I'm trying to see if I can look one up. Oh, here's one called, goblin. These things are called goblins rather than goblins, these little monsters. So here's a recipe for goblin snot. And it calls for 1 ripe kiwi and then some lemon lime soda, pineapple juice, and coconut milk. So, this isn't fine cooking, but it's fun for kids and it gets them interested in cooking and adventure. So I highly recommend these really cute books.
And I like the idea of cooking as a superpower.
Yeah. Laura, what do you have for us today?
Well, sort of on the heels of the death of golfing great Arnold Palmer recently, I watched just a funny and charming digital short on ESPN called Arnold Palmer. And it was an interview with him about sort of the creation of this drink and how he popularized it and how it took off.
Well, I will tell you, it started right here, about 100 yards from where we are.
It was really cute. They were interviewing him, and he was saying how he went home from the golf course one day, and he said to his wife, "Hey, babe, I've got an idea. You make a big pitcher of iced tea, and we'll put a little lemonade in it and see how that works." It's a sweet story about how this drink went from, probably something a lot of people did to being known as the Arnold Palmer. So I would recommend the ESPN digital short on Arnold Palmer.
Laura?
Yes.
I thought an Arnold Palmer had liquor in it.
No?
No?
It's iced tea and lemonade. Oh. And according to Arnold Palmer himself, iced tea as the dominant side. If it's not more iced tea, it's not really right.
Oh. Vodka is optional, however. Yay! Depending on what golf club you're at.
Ah, I see.
Erin, what do you have for us today?
Funny enough, I have another mini documentary of sorts to recommend, although it is a faux documentary. Is anyone familiar with the show Documentary Now on the IFC network?
Yes.
Excellent. So for those who are not familiar, Fred Armisen, who we all know as a co-host, co-creator of Portlandia, and Bill Hader, who is an alum of Saturday Night Live, have this show called Documentary Now, in which they basically satirize every documentary you could possibly think of. And this season, one of the ones that came up on their plate was a version of Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which they renamed, have you seen this?
Yes.
To Juan Likes Rice and Chicken.
It's shocking how simple it all is. There is a consistent, simple set menu. To start, a cup of warm coffee followed by a banana split perfectly in half. Then rice with a little bit of butter. And on most days, chicken.
And it makes fun, less of the chefs, although some of the things they point out are very much borderline. You could see some chefs in the Rene Redzepi elk going that way, but really more the sort of food, the tropes that we're familiar with when it comes to food documentaries like Jiro and like Chef's Table on Netflix, which incidentally has the same director, David Gelb, as Jiro Dreams of Sushi. It's not like laugh out loud funny, but I think anybody who covers media and who watches a lot of this kind of media can really identify with the slow motion over the certain things and the family strife and the cameos. Like Jonathan Gold makes one, a couple of big name chefs make cameos. It's absolutely worth your 22-minute watch.
Love it. Ivy, what do you have for us?
I specialize in writing healthy recipes, and so I do nutrition analysis on recipes that I'm writing for work. But I did realize once calories started popping up on menus like Starbucks and so forth that I really had no idea how many calories were in things. I was never a dieter, so I just don't know. So I got this neat little nifty app for my phone called Net Diary, and it's connected to a huge database. And so you can type in that you had a Starbucks Frappuccino, and it's going to tell, add up your points for the day. And you can start looking at, what is that little small plate portion of onion rings that I'm sharing with my husband? How many calories are actually in that? And to add it up for a day and really see like kind of where you go off the rails or where, when you've been good. And it also averages it in with your calorie expenditure. So what it takes to burn calories to just be me for a day and be breathing, and then, taking the dogs for a walk or doing the elliptical and thinking about that biscuits and gravy. I'm much more aware of how much fat and how many calories are in things now. And I think that's something that, I'm certainly not going to do it forever, but I think everybody could take a look at that and be just a little bit more aware. And it's kind of a fun app to use. I'm all for it. I think we all should know a little bit more about what we're putting in.
Especially if it's a secret menu item.
Yeah, especially.
Well, thank you, everyone. I wanted to thank our wonderful panelists again. Special thanks to recipe developer Laura Russell, Eater.com reports editor Erin DeJesus, and cookbook author Ivy Manning. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, please pull a chair up to our table and savor the conversation with us. You can subscribe to The Four Top on iTunes or however you get your podcasts. At facebook.com/The Four Top, we will post photos of the menu kits that we received, and you can see what we got in our special boxes. We'll also post some information about the ESPN digital short on Arnold Palmer, Juan Loves Chicken and Rice, the wonderful comic books I recommended, and lots of other things. After you like our page, you can suggest topics for us to discuss. And tweet us, please, at @4top, all one word. Today's show was recorded at Oregon Public Broadcasting in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon. Our producer is Alex Ward. Special thanks to OPB sound supervisor Stephen Cray. And our theme music was performed by the incomparable wine importer Kermit Lynch. I hope you can join us for our next episode, and please tell your friends about the Four Top and give us some loving feedback in iTunes. Ciao.
Nuit blanche, nuit blanche, nuit blanche.
Did anyone leave a tip?